Hello, welcome to Jason the Millennial. My name is Jason, speaking to you here in my basement in the great state of Kansas. And in today's video, I'm continuing my series on listing my top 100 favorite albums of all time. This time I'm at number 16 on my list, which is the great Jim Croce album, You Don't Mess Around with Jim. This is an album that came out in 1972. His third studio album, but really like his first of his major three albums that he came out with. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about it and stay tuned to hear my thoughts here on Jason, the Old Millennial. All right, hope everybody's doing well here on a Wednesday late afternoon period. Come back talking more about my favorite albums of all time. And this is my favorite Jim Croce album, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, number 16 on my list. So almost getting to my top 15 favorite albums according to the list that I made at the time about a couple years ago. I'm a huge fan of Jim Croce. One of my favorite, if you know on my channel, I love singer-songwriters who play the acoustic guitar. It's some of my favorite type of music. Give a lot of love to them. I feel like they're almost underrated in some senses. Bob Dylan gets a lot of, recognition for his contribution, but there's some artists like Jim Croce. I also talk about John Denver a lot on the channel that I feel like are somewhat underrated amongst the artists that are talked about. Because I feel like nobody really talks about any of the Jim Croce's albums, and I think all three are, the three main ones he has are all really good albums. I have all three in my top 100 favorite albums list. All three absolutely great. You got this one, Life and Times, and I've Got a Name, are his three albums, kind of his three major albums. Because when he first started, he did produce some albums, two albums kind of independently, not from a major studio. And they did all right, but they didn't do big numbers because they didn't have a major studio behind them. But it wasn't until 1972, I believe it was, the time this album came out in 1972, he finally got signed on to, I think, ABC Records or something like that. And he finally got, the recognition he deserved and got some money to be able to produce these albums of these songs that he wrote. And so that's kind of how he came about. But man, this is, especially this one, my favorite, number 16, really high on my list as far as his album goes. This has just so many huge hits, some of my favorite songs of all time from Jim Croce. I mean, You Don't Mess Around with Jim, the title of the album, obviously a big hit. Okay song, not one of my favorite actually of his. He's interesting, Jim Croce. He has he can do these fast-paced songs that are very fun. And then he has these just absolutely beautiful ballads with these really great melodies. Really great. He's a really great songwriter. Sometimes he can tell a really cool story through his songs. Really good storyteller. And then he has some really good love songs. He writes really great love lyrics there. And really love his writing style. Also love his vocals. I think he has just a really unique voice. Really great. Really fits his style and that singer-songwriter style that I love so much. Just love listening to him sing and play guitar. There's two guitar players. He plays more of the rhythm guitar, but he has another guitar player, I think Maury Muthlson or something like that, who plays the lead acoustic guitar. And the two guitars together sound all amazing. Him playing more two acoustic guitars, and one's playing more of a lead guitar role, while Jim Croce's playing more of the, I would say, rhythm guitar. And if you ever watch them on YouTube, the two play together. It's amazing just watching those two playing guitar together and him singing. It's such a great duo, really, that they made up for these albums. And man, if you don't know, of course, he dies in 1973, just a year after this album came out. And he produced all three albums within that year, from between 1972 and 1973, basically, and then died in a plane wreck, unfortunately, while he was touring his last album, I've Got a Name. And and he was only 30 years old, so you'd go, man, there's so much more great music we could have gotten out of Jim Croce. It's one of those sad, tragic things, that unfortunately happens in the music business. But New York's Not My Home, really great song. I absolutely love that song. Again, great melodies, just amazing. And it's interesting because I was looking up, reading about him. He's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area. When him and his wife, when he finally got like a record deal, well, he moved up to New York City to get a record deal, basically. And that's where, like, if you want to get known in music, you either go to like Los Angeles, California, or New York City, New York, whatever. Anyway, so it's kind of interesting when you listen to the song and it says New York's not my home. And I kind of feel that for him, like oh, because he was in New York at the time and he really wanted to go back to Philadelphia. They eventually moved back to Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, anyways, and get away from all that. I think it was just too. Now Philadelphia's a big city too, but I think he felt like New York was just too much and all that. Anyways, Photographs and Memories, one of the greatest songs. I mean, I absolutely love that song. It's such a great song about, looking at photographs, as you can tell by the name of the song, looking at photographs and just having those memories of the past, coming back to you. It's kind of the way the song's been done before and other people have done it since then, but it's such an amazing written song. The guitar playing is just beautiful. Absolutely love it. Operator, That's Not the Way It Feels. I mean, huge hit. One of his biggest hits. One of the biggest radio played songs that he's done. And it's another song. I love the storytelling of the song. And the guitar playing is just absolutely magnificent. I love the guitar playing in it. And it's got such a great, catchy song, especially the chorus, and it's just him talking to an operator, trying to get a hold of an ex-girlfriend who left him for his best friend Ray. And he kind of is telling the story to the operator, basically, about this relationship, and kind of like maybe he wants to get back together with her or whatever. But then by the end of the song, he kind of decides, you know what, I don't want to get back together. Forget I called. Don't call her. Thanks for listening to me. Anyways, I just love how it has this really cool story structure to it, and the way it ends. It's just amazing. Great Jim Croce writing there. And then Time in the Bottle, for me, one of the greatest love songs ever written, about loving someone so much you wish you can hold on to that moment forever, and that time could stay still for a moment while you're with your loved one. I mean, just amazing writing, and makes you really feel those love feelings. And the acoustic guitar playing, absolutely amazing. Love the picking of the guitar there in the beginning, especially. It's some of the best ever. Anyway, those are some of my favorites off the album, but it's top to bottom great album. Like I said, all kind of different styles there. That I absolutely love from Jim Croce. And it's interesting because, like I said, this is his third studio album, but by the time he got, like I was talking about, by the time he got signed on with ABC, whatever, he already had a bunch of songs ready, and so he actually came out with 2 albums in 1972. This was the first of the 2, You Don't Mess Around Jim, and they also came out with, after this, he came out with another album, which was Life and Times, which I also have on record on vinyl, and 2 really good albums. Interesting, this album had 2 big singles off of it, like I talked about. You Don't Mess Around Jim was his biggest one, which went number 8 in the U.S., and Operator, Because That's the Way I Feel, went number 17 in the U.S. on the pop charts. I guess it was like on the pop album charts. Anyways, and so those got a lot of radio play. Time in the Bottle was getting, a good radio play as well. Like I said, New York's Not My Home might have gotten radio play. I'm not sure. That's such a good song. I don't feel like Photographs and Memories got radio play. I never heard of it until I listened to this album. But after I listened to the album, I'm like, wow, that's one of my favorite Jim Croce songs of all time. It's just incredible. I think right after this, the next album came out, and Bad Boy Leroy Brown became his first #1 hit off of the second album, Life and Times. Anyway, so he had that #1 hit anyway. So, and he was going around touring, of course, all over the United States, even in Europe, promoting these albums. And then he wrote and came out with the third album, I've Got a Name. And I'm talking about those because it kind of connects with this album in a really interesting way. It's kind of interesting, a story behind it in some senses, that he came out with the third album, and he went to go tour to promote the I've Got a Name album, and a week after he finished the album, he died in a plane crash. So he didn't really get to live around to really see what would become of that album. though obviously right away it became a big hit album after he died. Of course, everybody was feeling, pretty sad after that. And he had some hit singles off that album as well that did well. But one of the interesting things, I think, is that in 1974, about a year after he died, this album, You Don't Mess With Jim, went number one in 1974 in the US on the pop album charts. So it kind of got a resurgence after he died, of course, which makes sense. When someone beloved dies, you start listening to their stuff a lot more, and their album sales usually do really well or whatever. And that's kind of what happened with this album. Really hit its peak in 1974, 2 years after the album came out, because of the death of Jim Croce. Also, one of the most interesting stories, I think, is that Time in the Bottle was not put out as a single in 1972. Interesting enough, I don't know why. It's such a great song. They only put the two singles out. And after Jim Croce died, there was such an outpour of wanting this song, Time in the Bottle, to be a single. It was kind of this heavily requested song. Everybody wanted the song, as a single. Because the song is, obviously even more sad now after he died, because Time in the Bottle is all about, wanting to slow down time so you can spend time with your loved ones, and the idea of, time goes by too fast, and you never know, what's going to happen, and so it's just so, interesting to the fact that after he died, people look at that song differently. And it definitely is interesting when you listen to the song now, of course, as I do all the time, and think about Jim Croce, writing the song not long before he died, and how poignant the song is to his life, and that, yeah, time, you wish Jim Croce had more time, and you wish he put time in the bottle, and Jim Croce, we could have more time with Jim Croce, and how sad it is that he left his, little newborn son, his son was very young, when he died, and so never got to see his son grow up, never had that relationship, and it's kind of a song to his wife and his son, and all that. So it's very, very sad in a sense, but even though, like I said, it's a great love song to me, but it's amazing. And anyway, so Time in the Bottle went number one in the charts in 1974 after he died, because of such an outpour of wanting to own this song as a single. Anyway, so I thought that was very interesting that happened. That was really cool that there's such an outpour of love for Jim Croce that it caused, his album and the song to be number one. And it's his second only two number one hits he's ever had, anyways, and it happened after he died. So anyways, that's kind of an interesting story behind that. But yeah, overall, just amazing. If you like singer-songwriters, you gotta listen to the album, or you gotta have it. I think it's an essential album in my opinion. It's one of the essential albums that everybody should own, I think, in their catalog, or should definitely listen to if you haven't listened to it. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, so I'll go to my top 3 favorite songs, which I've talked about already, so not a lot to say, except that New York Summer Home didn't make in top 3, but man, that's an amazing song. Normally that'd make him a top 3, but there's just so many good songs on here that didn't quite make it in, surprisingly. But number 3, I'm going with Operator. That's the Way I Feel. I mean, that's number 3, and that's like one of the great songs. One of my favorite Jim Croce songs of all time. Like I said, this is probably my top 3 songs on here, probably my 3 favorite Jim Croce songs. That's why this album is so high on my list. When I take really one of my favorite singer-songwriters of all time, and this is his best album, it had to be high on my list. That's why it's at 16. But Operator, like I said, great storytelling, great guitar playing, just a fun song to listen to, really catchy, one of the all-time greats. Number 2 is Photographs of Memories, a song that maybe, if you haven't heard it, gotta listen to this song. He actually came out with, after he died, they came out with a greatest hits album called Photographs and Memories. So if you ever heard Photographs and Memories, you might have heard of it as the Jim Croce greatest hits album, anyways. That came after, which it's probably an album I need to get, because I mean, so many great songs that he, in such a short time, in only 3 albums, he created so many great hits and so many amazing songs. It's incredible. But yeah, Photographs of Memories, again, love the songwriting, I'm always a sucker for these type of songs that reminisce about the past, and the idea of, photographs. That's what photographs do. When you look at photographs, it reminds you of the past, and that's why I love taking pictures and videos and looking at them later and keeping them. It's always been a big deal for me. So, but yeah, it's such a great song. And then number 1 has to be Time in a Bottle, one of my favorite songs of all time. My favorite Jim Croce song of all time. I said, I love that guitar, that dun, 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 that picking part. Bum 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 bum. Ah, so beautiful. It's like some of the most beautiful guitar playing I've ever heard. And then him coming in with "If I Had a Time in the Bottle, first thing I like to do, dun 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 dun." Just so great. Love how guitar plays with his voice and goes into the, and just the songwriting. Like I said, it's just some of the best songwriting I've ever heard in a song. Here, mixed with the beautiful melodies, it's a must. It's a must, number one here. So that is my favorite song here, "Time in the Bottle" on the album. You don't mess around with Jim, which is my number 16 favorite album all time. Yeah, so please comment. Have you heard this album? What do you think? How do you feel about it? What's your favorite songs on it? Love to read your comments on anything you have to say about this album, Jim Croce. And just want to thank everybody who's watching this video. Thank you for liking it. And just thank you to all my subscribers for supporting this channel. I appreciate you all, and I hope you have a good day.